Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mortgage Fundamentals. My name is Daniel, your host here, and I am joined today with the lovely Rachel Gaston. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining me. I know you haven't been here before.
No,
so
first podcast.
Yes. So please introduce yourself to the world.
Okay, so I'm Rachel Gaston. I am a realtor here in Las Vegas. So I'm with EXP Realty. If you are curious on any of the real estate stuff outside of the lending, you can always reach out to me at Midwest Meets Vegas on Instagram.
Can they find you anywhere else, Rachel?
Yes, Facebook, actually. Yeah, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the things. So yes, those three platforms are probably the top notch.
Key ways to get a hold of you. And I will definitely be putting those links in the description below.
I appreciate that.
So please reach out to her. Again, I've worked with Rachel before, and she's a very lovely person, great with her clients, just all around an amazing person.
I can say the same for you.
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just kidding. All right. So, Rachel, since you are the co-host here today, please tell us what our topic is.
We are going to be discussing the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, which is extremely important for the buyers, but also for the sellers as well.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're getting a pre-approval.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody should be educated on this, not just the buyers, but like you said, the sellers as well. Yeah. And I think even real estate agents should really have an understanding of this, especially if they're newer. I'm pretty sure they don't know.
Because I know we kind of talked about that before, right? Like when I was a newer agent, I was always a little lenient on asking my buyers about, do you actually have a pre-approval for pre-qualification? Because you always want to make the sale and all things, but you need to do your due diligence. So
yeah, I definitely. It is important. I've noticed a lot of agents, newer agents, like you mentioned, they're just so new to the business and don't understand the importance of actually having one that some of them will actually go out and show houses without even a pre-approval or pre-qualification. They just hope and assume that the person is going to be qualified.
Yeah. And it ends up a lot of heartache, headache all around. And also too, for like a real estate side of things.
A waste of money.
Yeah. And also too, I mean, even for realtors themselves, it's good to do your due diligence in regards to that because it's also, I think, a little safety barrier too. Making sure that the client was vetted.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important.
They say they are who they say they are in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So, excuse me there, guys. All right. So, so just to jump into the topic, I think the first thing I really want to talk about is what is a pre-qualification. So a pre-qualification is essentially just a bare minimum review of your application. So in some cases, when it comes to mortgage loans, pre-qualification, in my opinion, is a loan application. Somebody just quickly ran your credit and your credit was good. They asked you all the things in terms of your income, and that was it. Right.
So in my mind, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you, like, let's say someone gets like a credit card in the mail and it's like, oh, you're pre-qualified and you have that credit card, but is it really, are you really pre-qualified? Yeah. Is that a good way of looking at it?
It's a pre-qualification in the sense it's not solid in any way, right? It has no real foundation. It's just looking at someone for who they are as just a physical person, right?
As a whole.
You don't know anything about them other than that, and then you're making a judgment call on that, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a great way of kind of
putting it. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I like it. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So all in all, I think in short, like a pre-qualification segment is really going to be short because it doesn't really have much, and there's not much really to say about it. So in our opinions, I think you would agree pre-qualifications are kind of meh when it comes to mortgages.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too that a lot of times is that we want to trust everybody, but I think sometimes people try to think that, oh, you know what, like if I tell them that this is how much money I make, then they're going to give me the pre-qual and I'm going to be able to move forward and get this house and my dream house and all the things. But in reality, that's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And it's going to cause a lot of friction and you're not going to be able to move forward. So at that point, it's just, you got to be truthful. You got to get that pre-approval.
Yeah. Be honest.
Be honest. I think that's another thing too that needs to be brought up. some people are just like, oh, well, I make like, $10,000 a month and I'm going to be fine with this. But in reality, they make underneath that and then hard feelings all around. So
yeah, I think
good to avoid.
There's a lot of people that assume or think that that's what they really make, living in with rose-colored glasses on about a lot of things. The other people just think that it's not going to get verified and think they're going to get away with certain things. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Yeah, they try to cut corners, and you can't do that. You cannot. And maybe that was done years ago, but nowadays you cannot get away with certain things. So just be truthful. That is like, I think, a major thing in my eyes. And also too, I mean, from the listing side of things, if I had, an agent come through with a buyer and they said, oh, well, they're pre-qual. Well, what about pre-approval?
That's great. I'm glad they got a pre-qual. I'm glad they did the bare minimum. I'm glad they took out the trash today.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's great. Can I at least talk to the lender? Like, what are we doing here? Because I'll tell my clients that you can't move forward with that. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to advise not to.
Yeah. Pre-qualifications are really scary when it comes to a listing agent receiving it, even the buying agent, because there's really a lot that can go wrong with just a pre-qualification.
Well, and I think too that there's those companies that, and this is where the safety factor comes in, and this is just talking for the realtors, right? There's those companies like, I don't know, I think I've had this happen.
Oh, that's not mentioned.
Oh, I've had that happen with with some companies where, again, this is when I was newer, and it was like, they weren't coming necessarily through, I won't say names, but they were just coming through other sources. And I would go out of my way just to say like, okay, I'm excited. We're going to go look at these houses. They have a pre-qual, but then it wasn't accurate. And that was with the finances stuff. But I've also heard like horror stories where it wasn't even the person that they said they were being, like let's say it was Billy Bob, but they were going by Joe Smith or something.
Yeah.
So for the safety reason for realtors, I think it's really good to vet your clients out.
Absolutely.
And I think some people, like buyers, for instance, kind of take offense into that, well, you don't trust me. It's not necessarily that, but also,
well, you're going to be,
what are you going to do moving forward?
You're going to be spending hours on hours with this person. You're going to be alone with this person in houses, day, night, whenever. Right. So it's not even just a safety or them not trusting you in a sense financially.
No.
Because, things can go wrong. And you gave me a pre-qual and then the things go to poop in a sense, like everything goes south.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But now you're having to put your faith in this human being for your physical safety at this point. You know what I mean? Going from house to house, unless you're going to go with a buddy and do a buddy system. Which
you can do. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. And that is one thing that I've stood my ground on. And I think it saved me from a lot of maybe bad situations. We'll just keep it like that.
Worse situations.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and I bring that up to, people that kind of give me a hard time about that. I'm like, it's not just for me, but it's also for you. Because what if we were looking at houses that you can't afford? Or maybe we're looking at a lower price home and you can actually, you're in a better place to where you can expand what we're looking at. Yeah. I think that's, again, it's all important. But
there's that. And then there's also the part where if they are looking at the wrong priced homes, there's that, there's an excitement when people go looking for homes. For the most part, most people are very excited when they start the process or at least start looking at homes, because it is exciting to kind of make that change or that move in your life, right? You're purchasing your first home. It's going to be something that's yours. It's going to build equity in the future. But then let's just assume that you're pre-approved for $500,000. But all of a sudden you go through the whole process and find out it's only like $350.
That hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, you know? And again, when I was a newer agent, and then it's also bad blood and bad taste for all parties, right? You're going to be upset with your lender. You're going to be upset with the realtor, all the things. And it's just like, well, that's why it's good to go ahead and take those steps prior to even looking at homes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because then it makes the experience that much more enjoyable, but also it goes a lot quicker too.
Yeah.
So.
And just for preface, buying a home is very enjoyable, but sometimes it will be a little stressful. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, let's get into what a pre-approval is.
Yes. Yeah. This is exciting.
It is. So
exciting.
I'm glad Rachel's having an exciting time about pre-approvals. All right. So pre-approval. A pre-approval is a loan application, credit ran, asking all the questions, and then reviewing the credit, ensuring that there's nothing wrong with it. Credit score is one of the key things we look at. Do you have a bankruptcy? Do you have short sales? What's your payment history like? Do you have other mortgages, etc.? Right.
Right.
The other key thing we're doing is we're reviewing documentation that we request. So I think that's the key difference here is a pre-qualification, we stop there. With a pre-approval, at this point, I'm reviewing your application and everything you told me. I'm asking for certain documentation, whether that's income documentation like W-2 and pay stubs, bank statements and IDs. And then I am taking that all in, reviewing it, and making sure I do proper calculations for income. Maybe you're receiving some sort of child support. Maybe you're paying child support.
Medical bills.
Medical bills really don't apply here.
Really? Okay, I was curious on that because I did have a horror story about that. So.
Oh, shoot.
I'm like, wow.
No, medical bills actually are one of the few things that we don't even have to worry about with FHA.
Oh, with FHA. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think conventional really cares unless you put it like on a credit card or something like that. If it's a medical bill on your credit card, then yeah, we care. But if it's
this is good to know.
Not on your credit card.
See, this is why we're doing this right now.
Yeah, exactly. So demystifying the fact that I don't care about your medical bills.
Just take that out.
I'm sorry, guys. For anybody who does have any medical bills, it sucks. I apologize.
Yes, that's true.
But after we are doing a quick review, and then we're also running it. I'm verifying your employment, by the way.
That's a big one.
I'm making sure that you do work where you work.
I've had that happen before too. So again, be truthful.
And we're even doing that before closing. So that means is don't quit your job.
I've had that happen too. Yeah. Yeah, change job. Yeah. Yeah, just try not to.
Yeah.
Before you do anything. And I mean, there's going to be times where, I mean, I just went through that with the listing and we had the pre-approval, not pre-qualification. We had the pre-approval, good to go. But then something did happen with the job. And there's some things you can't avoid. I mean, if you get fired, you get fired. But this is still going to, the pre-approval is more of a solid foundation for you to move forward with. And I mean, some things do happen, but for the most part, this is
in the pre-approval process. It's really important that we get all these things kind of settled.
Yes.
And then on top of that, like if you're a business owner, obviously for income, we're going to be taking either not pay stubs because there's no pay stubs if you're a business owner. We're doing tax returns. We do have different kinds of programs that we can use for different kinds of people to verify their income, but just to keep it simple, pay stubs and W-2s for W-2 employees and tax returns and any other business related income documentations for business clients.
This is a good point to bring up because I feel like nowadays with social media, I mean, let's be honest, there's so many influencers and, we'll just say influencers that this is good information to have.
Yeah,
absolutely. What it boils down to.
Yeah.
So.
Especially if you're like thinking about doing the loan process and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it because I don't feel prepared. This is your moment to be prepared if you want to be that fully prepared. But I'm just going to say this. You don't have to be fully prepared if you're going to jump into it. That's what we're here for.
Well, and you've helped out with a lot of clients, right? I mean, and I tell a lot of people that as well. Oh, well, I'm not ready. I don't know what's going on with this, that, and the other with my finances. It's always still good to reach out to Daniel, in this case scenario, because you're really good about walking people through what they need to do to end up getting to that pre-approval state. And that's important.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to throw that in there because I think a lot of people don't think to even reach out to you. It's like a fear factor, I think, for a lot of people.
I think people are scared of rejection. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm scared of rejection.
Don't worry, we're not meeting at a bar. We're not meeting out in public or anything like that too. But
it's confidential stuff.
It is confidential stuff. I always talk to people, and when they tell me, "Oh, I don't know, I think my credit this or that and that," and I'm like, "Look, let's just do a quick loan application. I can do a soft pull, which isn't going to affect your credit."
Can you break that down? What a soft pull is?
So there's a difference between a hard pull and a soft pull on your credit. Hard inquiry is actually going to affect your credit and show up and trigger a lot of things, whereas a soft pull is we're pulling your credit, but it's not there to impact it in any way. So what we're doing is we're essentially pulling the same kind of information, but I'm using it as a snapshot to kind of see where we are at that point.
Perfect.
And then if you feel like you have issues with your credit, that's when I'm like, okay, here's what we can do to get your credit fixed. Here's the timeline, and let's work on it, kind of situation. So
see, I think that's important because I think a lot of people automatically assume, oh my gosh, they're gonna talking to a lender, it's gonna mess up my credit even more, and I'm never gonna be able to get to being a homeowner, and that's not the case.
Next time they can do a soft pull. That's the easiest way to do it.
Glad we brought that
soft pull is really, really, really the key answer there.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of people judging you on your credit. I do this for a living. I've seen a lot of credit. Do you think I really care what your credit looks like? I've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
So I am not here to judge. My job is to help you and get you approved for a home. So that's all my goal is going to be.
And that's the overall. And absolutely. Well, and I think too, it's like, again, let's use social media as an example. I think that there's a certain perceived interpretation of what everybody's doing, and it's like this, well, look at these people, look how well they're doing, I'm doing crappy. Well, that's not probably necessarily the case. It's kind of like a facade, so don't, that fear factor, sometimes you just got to let that go and take the step, and you're gonna get there. And that's why they have you and me on the other side.
And you and me and you. I tell people this now. I think it's one of the take a quote, guys. If you guys are going to take any quote, this is one of the greatest quotes or things I've heard recently. And I think I heard it on social media, ironically.
Hey, I still love social media. I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying,
Yeah. But don't view other people's accomplishments, or don't view how other people are doing, especially if they're the same age, to where you are in life. You know what I mean? Everybody walks a different path of life.
Oh,
you can just worry about where you're going. You know what I mean? Because then you're always just going to try to stick with the present when you should be thinking about the present, but you should be planning your future and working towards that.
Yeah, your future.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's funny. I just went through a business planning sector, and there was all of these, great influential realtors, and there was one we were watching YouTube, and gosh, I cannot think of the main realtor that was on the YouTube video, which shame on me, because it was actually really insightful, not just for real estate, but he was talking about the same thing. He's like, whatever you're doing, whether it's real estate or a bakery, I don't know, whatever the case is, you can't look at what everyone else is doing. It's okay to do that, but also you're going to start saying what you just said, right? Like, well, they're doing this, I'm not doing that, so I suck. Well, no, it's not the case. I mean, that was basically the gist of it.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking. I'm like, that is true. I think that happens a lot, because I follow other realtors. Now that's for, referrals and all the things. But there are some where I'm like, oh man, I'm not doing that. And it's like, well, no, wait, that's not my journey though.
Yeah.
So you have to focus on your journey. And it's not selfish. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Because that's going to get you to where you want to be.
You know what sucks?
What?
If you just kept watching those people and just loathing and resenting people and never doing anything.
Well, that's what happens too. Yeah, absolutely. Because then you kind of get in this funky mind state of like, well, I'm just never going to be good enough, so I'm just not going to do it. And then you end up taking 10 steps back rather than a few steps forward. It's better to take a few steps forward than 10, 20 steps back.
Or even take one step back just to reevaluate everything and then move forward.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that too.
So long story short, you don't suck. You can do it. Oh my God.
I'm going to make you do that. Now it's on this podcast. So now it's out there. It's going to happen now. Do you see why I did that?
Manifestation. Oh my God. So moving on, I believe I did not mention. Okay. So AUS. So not only are we running your credit, doing the application, verifying all this income, I still have to run it through an AUS system, or something called an automatic underwriting system. So for us, it is a system. It is a system.
It is a system.
It is a system.
It's an important system to have.
It is a very important system to have. And I just lost my words as to what it is. But essentially, it's just running your information through it, your credit, all the information we put into it, and determining your credit risk and giving us either an approval or no approval, or maybe even a refer. I'll get in more detail in a future podcast about that stuff. Okay. But we're just essentially trying to see if you're going to qualify for that loan. And if this system gives us that okay, then we know we're looking pretty good. The other key thing about the system is that it gives us its own individual findings.
Can you break that down?
Yeah. So sometimes I'm just asking for regular documentation. That's very normal for the process.
Okay.
But sometimes they want a little bit more. They want to verify certain things. For example, sometimes they might even request that you have a certain amount of reserves in order to qualify for the loan. So if you're one of those people that are like at bare minimum and barely have enough to close, so you don't have any reserves, then it might not work out.
And there might be monthly, you're like, oh, I'm making this a month, but there's still other factors involved, right? So that's important, because I've had a lot of buyers are like, oh my gosh, the lender's asking for this document. There's a reason for that, and it's in reality, it's going to protect you in the long run, to make sure you're really at a good place moving forward with the property.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key part.
Yeah.
The lender, as in Daniel,
is
doing their due diligence to make sure that making sure that doing the due diligence to get you to where you want to be. It can be a little frustrating at times because the documentation part, let's be honest, that's not fun for anybody necessarily. But
it's not. And to be honest with you, as long as you're working with a good set of a good team or a good setup team, whatever the case may be, it shouldn't feel like that, but sometimes it does. But yeah, AUS system is basically like an AI form of just determining somebody's full risk and making sure that we verify just enough to know that we have the ability to repay that mortgage without going into default. So essentially, all in all, the loan application process, everything, all the laws and the guidelines that they've created is just to ensure that you, as the buyer, have the ability to actually repay this loan without any issues.
Well, and I think that is I'm glad we're talking about that, because I've had a lot of, we'll say, older clientele that is like, oh, I don't remember doing this back in, the 80s and 90s. Well, yeah, there's a reason why we're doing this now. Is because I think a lot of people, it maybe wasn't the best getting pre-approved without.
Oh, you're talking about 2008?
Yeah.
Oh, when pre-qualifications were great? Or whatever they were doing?
Yeah, whatever they were doing, like all that crazy nonsense. Yeah. Like, oh, you can buy $1 million home, but really, you should probably buy a $300,000 home, And so that's why there's all these extra steps and the precautions, right, to make sure that you're at a good place.
Yeah.
Because it's better to be there than back in 2008 when all of a sudden now it's like, panic, I can't afford this.
That process probably would have been a lot better if people were a little bit more ethical about it. You know what I mean?
That's why it's always good to tell the truth. Always tell the truth. Shame.
Yes. Please be honest. I will say this, though, and take this for what it is. Tell me as much as I need to know. If I didn't ask, don't tell me.
Oh, that's true, too.
To a certain extent. Don't sit there and leave out that you're paying alimony and child support, because I'm going to eventually find out. And if you don't think I'm going to find out, honestly, I'm going to find out about something.
Right. Well, right.
Yeah. I've had clients where they didn't tell me anything until like mid-process, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, so this just showed up out of nowhere. Yeah. Fortunately for me and our team, we're very creative and capable of making sure that we find a way to do stuff if we have to.
But sometimes
things are just too much.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. And
that's why I had that horror story, I think, with the medical bills. My client was trying to throw it under the rug. Hear me out on this. I'm just curious. I just want to hear your insight on this. So this was like years ago, and they had like they had like a motorcycle accident, really bad. They didn't have insurance, I think. So the medical bills were like out of this world, and they just never paid them. And so that was found out later.
Well, maybe it was during a time, because when I say that medical bills don't matter, I think that kind of changed at a certain point where it didn't really matter.
To be fair, this was years ago. I'm not trying to age myself here, but now that I think about it, I'm kind of like,
You're not aging yourself. You're just showing your experience.
Yeah, you know what? I'm experienced. Darn it. Another thing, I'm like, well, you know, what's kind of a while ago.
We all know Rachel's been doing this for years.
Yeah,
at this
now
point.
we do. Good Lord. Okay.
Well, let me see what else we need.
Yeah.
So
that was a total side note. Sorry, it was in my head. Side note.
Side note. Side notes are okay. The other thing we want to make sure we're doing when we're doing just the pre-approval process and going through everything is making sure we go over all the options and the numbers with the client, right? Mm-hmm. So full transparency. That's how I like to do business. I do a cost worksheet. I have noticed that a lot of banks, lenders, whatever, whenever they send me a cost worksheet or not a fake LE, but a cost worksheet that kind of tells the person, okay, what their interest rate's going to be, what their payments are going to be, what their costs are going to be, they omit so much information on that thing. And to me,
you don't know what you're looking at.
You don't, but a good lender should walk you through that.
Exactly.
Right?
And so let's take this down to easy peasy terms, right? Yeah. Are you talking about the difference like with rates and everything for like different loans in terms of like FHA?
Yep. Programs, how much you put down.
Yeah, there's grant programs, all the things. Mm-hmm. See, you're doing your due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Doing your due diligence in a sense. But you want to make sure that you know, okay, am I going to get the citizen trace? Is it going to cost me anything? What are my other fees going to be? Title fees are a thing here in Nevada because we go through title companies when we purchase homes. We use real estate agents here in Nevada, unlike some places I think use lawyers.
Yeah, East Coast.
East Coast uses lawyers. We have maybe transfer tax fees, prepaid costs, lender fees, right. Random little things like maybe a flood cert, right? So there's a lot of
which it's not that common out here, but I used to have that a lot back in Missouri. It still happens though.
Vegas used to have a lot of flood areas here. It doesn't anymore. Now mostly Pahrump has a lot of flood areas. Yeah. And as you can hear my dog in the background, guys, I do apologize.
It just adds a little pizzazz, you know, because you know what, we're human, right? We actually do.
And he's a dog.
Yeah, he's a dog. Yeah.
He's a dog. He gets to live his life as well. Let him live his life. Yeah. I bought this house for him. Okay.
And see, that's a good point, right? Yeah. You need to make sure you get pre-approval so you can, afford these nice houses for your pets.
No one more important than your pet to have a nice roof over their head and a backyard.
You know what? I ended up moving in Vegas, in a certain area in Vegas, specifically for my dog. So it happened. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we got a big dog.
Yeah, wow, exactly. I need to be closer to the mountain. He's fluffy.
He's
fluffy for Vegas.
Needs a backyard.
Yeah.
Needs to chase the birds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a thing.
It is. But yeah. Full transparency. That's the way I like to do things. I personally feel like you have to be as transparent with your clients as much as possible. As much as people don't want to hear certain things, like I will sit there and obviously I'm very excited about you getting pre-approved. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't like surprises for people. I didn't like them for myself when I was purchasing my first home. Then something happened. So personally myself, I take that as my reasoning behind why I like to be a little bit more transparent than most other people will be.
I think it's good going over the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what I tell all of my clients. I'm like, look, there's going to be some things that are going to be tough to hear or discuss, but it's better than me sugarcoating it because I'd rather my clients be in the know rather than, and I know you're the same way. I feel like I'm speaking for the both of us on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think some people, it's kind of hard for them to do that with their clients. And I know that's one thing I really appreciate when I work with you is that you're cut and dry. And I think that is important. And I mean,
I'm still a nice guy.
You're very, very nice. 2 C's. Like my clients always make fun of me for this, but it sticks in your head. So think about this. I feel like I like my clients to have the 2 C's, right? Which is I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be confident moving forward.
That's true.
And that's one thing I love about you is I feel like all my clients are always comfortable and confident moving forward.
Yeah, like our most recent client.
Yes.
Her.
Oh,
loved her.
Did
she?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love her. Don't tell her not to forget to put a review on my website. I should call her.
I'm so bad
all right. So the next thing is, how long does it take to get a pre-approval?
That's a good question, Daniel. How long does it take to get a pre-approval? pre-approval?
Well, it really depends on the client, to be honest with you.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
I have given pre-approvals basically right after a conversation because I can get, just side note is sometimes I can actually get your income verification pretty quickly myself through something called a VOE, or verification of employment.
I feel like you've done that pretty quick
Yeah,
before.
with the work number. As long as you at least give me a bank statement and show proof of funds, unless we're using alternative means getting you into that house. It's pretty quick. I've had clients where I've had a client take a whole month to get me stuff that I needed. And they're just, I don't want to say that they were making excuses, but sometimes life does get in the way, I understand people are busy.
Yeah. Sometimes you're working like multiple jobs and you have kids or pets or whatever the case is, and sometimes it is harder to get that going.
Or sometimes you're just a more complicated buyer.
That too, Well, and that's a good thing to bring up, right? I mean, sometimes even like for me showing properties, right, is I know that like as long as they've given you a good majority of the documents and it's like, okay, we're looking at you getting them that pre-approval, I'll more than likely still take the client out and go look at properties. But I would prefer to have the pre-approval.
Well, that's the conversation that we and you would have. Like, it'd be like, okay, I feel confident. Like, I feel confident enough. Like, I'm not gonna. We'll see what happens when we get to that point where we have to do a pre-approval.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing about the teamwork, right? Because we're working for the benefit of the client to get them to where they want to be. So that's important.
Yep. And again, making sure that they're confident. And what's the other one? Comfortable?
Comfortable and confident moving forward, Daniel. Your 2 C's. You're going to remember that.
Oh, man.
I have some clients that laugh that they bought like multiple properties with me and they're like, oh, yeah, the 2 C's. I'm like, yeah, see, you remember that from the first
round. Yeah. You got to be confident and comfortable. And in all honesty, I try to make everybody confident and comfortable with everything. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll even take a little longer. Be like, look, as much as I feel comfortable with this, I want to make sure nothing doesn't go wrong. And
absolutely,
that's where I put my neck top. Should I be worried if it takes too long for you to get a pre-approval? I don't think you should. Like, I'll tell you if there's something wrong.
That's what I was saying earlier with you being cut and dry, and I didn't mean that like in a like you're going to be mean sense, but you really are doing your due diligence on your part, and that's I'm going to use that a lot. I think throughout this whole podcast, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's important. I just lost my train of thought, so you can pick up from here.
Oh yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about, I don't even know why I didn't put the 2 C's in here, but I did put confidence. So why is a pre-approval better? I think we touched on a lot of reasons as to why it is, but I think some of it really has to do with confidence, right? There's confidence involved in every party. So there's confidence in the fact that you as the buyer's agent feel confident to go out with that client and put in offers.
Absolutely.
Right? There's confidence in the buyer with their lender and the real estate agent that they can get into this home, right? Yeah. Now then you go into their side. What about the seller side? So that's one of the questions I did put on here. As a realtor, why would you advise your clients to go with a pre-approval versus pre-qualification if you were the listing agent?
I've had to do that before. And I've had clients ask like, well, really, what's the difference? And that's why I use the whole, well, when you get a credit card in the mail that says, oh, you're pre-qualified, do you really trust that? I mean, I'd rather first off, I would like to speak to the lender that they're using, but because I really want to make sure that they do have a pre-approval and how far along they are in the process. And I think we're going to talk about that with the underwriting.
Yeah.
We'll get there, right?
Yeah.
But I've had this instance, and you and I talked about this a little bit before we started, which was I've had a cash buyer and I've had a pre-approval, but after speaking to, and a lot of times, I mean, there are times where I've said, okay, you know what, I feel more confident going with the cash because it was during the time where we were just getting crazy offers, right? Like 40 offers on a house in like 24, 48 hours. But so the cash, I was like, okay, but I was getting offers that were like, oh, they're pre-qualified. Even if it was a lot more, like, let's say it was like, I had one that was like $20,000 over. I wasn't going to go with the pre-qualification because it could be a waste of time for my sellers. And so I really have to do my due diligence on that part and say, okay, this is the difference between the two. You're kind of walking on thin ice with that pre-qualification, because what happens if we go ahead and accept an offer with that pre-qualification, even if it's only like, maybe it's 5, 10, 15,000 over the pre-qualification or a pre-approval. I'm sorry.
We'll bleep that out.
Thank you. So what I was saying is, let's say we get a pre-qualification, like 10,000 over a pre-approval. The pre-approval is more solid in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I will go over that with my clients.
Well, so it's like having a complete stranger come in and that you've never met before and saying, hey, I'm going to buy this house. That's it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Without any backup. You know what I mean? The piece of paper is basically like walking around with a napkin.
Yeah, it's not really valid in my eyes. That's great that you have it, but I don't trust it.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
strongly my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, again, even having a strong pre-approval letter, and this is something I think we talked about, maybe I'm repeating on myself on this, but let's say I've had, and this has happened, I've had a cash offer and I've had a pre-approval offer. And the pre-approval offer was like a little bit over whatever the case is. And my client's like, well, that's cash. And I'm like, I spoke with the lender and they were far along. I think they were in the underwriting process of the pre-approval.
Okay.
And which I know we'll talk about. And we ended up going with the pre-approval.
Yeah.
Rather than the cash.
Yeah.
It might have been, okay, like a 30-day close rather than like a 15. But money is money at that point. And in a seller's mind, it's kind of like, okay, well.
You're waiting 15 days for.
Yeah, and you're getting
thousands
like $10,000 more. Like it kind of adds up, Yeah. So, in my mind, I'm not opposed to looking at a pre-approval, a strong pre-approval against cash. I guess is what I'm trying to get across.
You're not going to dismiss it.
I'm not. No, I won't.
Because your job, in a sense, is just make sure you're giving your clients the best advice. If you're the listing agent, of course,
yeah, absolutely,
and the buying agent as well. But in this case, you want to make sure that they're getting the best deal that they can get.
Absolutely, that's what it boils down to,
And I think your story has like a very key element to it as to why having an experienced agent or an agent to help them see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this person obviously was just going to jump with cash.
Well, because you hear cash.
Yeah.
And you think cash is key. Well, but the pre-approval, you're still getting the cash at close anyways. Yeah. It's just they have a pre-approval. Yeah. They might just not have hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're pre-approved for.
The bank has it.
Yeah, the bank has it.
And they're giving it to you.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm good with it. Like, let's go, and then when you talk to your clients like that, then they're like, well, wait a minute. Yeah. Why would I turn down like $10,000+ That doesn't make, You
got to look at it this way. Buyers and sellers have the purchase and the sell is very emotional, and they get very, very involved in certain kinds of emotions really quick. Yeah. Right. So it's really important to have somebody else there to kind of, bring you down to earth really quick. It's great to be excited. Don't get me wrong. It is exciting.
Absolutely.
But you still want to make sure that you're making that better decision, right? You want to make the best decision, not a decision.
Right.
The best decision.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I don't get these anymore, but back in the beginning of things, it was like, I used to call them like love notes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
People would convince them to buy that house.
Yes, and then some sellers would be like, "Well, oh my gosh, they wrote this note," but I'm like, "It's a pre-qualification." I don't care if it's more money. We're sticking with the pre-approval. Don't pay attention. Like, I hate to be like kind of harsh about that, but I'm like, don't pay attention to their whole life story.
Yeah, they lost their arm in the war, and.
I mean, it could be true, but like also at the same time, that's where I have to kind of come in and be like, I hate to say this, but I don't care about that. And it's because I'm doing my due diligence for my client. I'm not trying to be
like Rachel, they just had their miracle baby.
Yeah, and that's great. And as a person, I love that. I do. But I'm here to help my clients.
Yeah, as your agent.
As your agent. We're not going with that just because they're trying to pull on some heartstrings.
Yeah, understandable.
So the whole like the good, we're gonna look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think that's
the ugly.
That's some of the ugly.
Yeah, because now you feel
the emotions are involved.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it really is. Honestly, it is.
Yeah, that's why you have a nice team supporting you throughout the process.
Emotional team.
Yes, emotional support. financial, emotional, all of it.
Do you think agents and lenders just call each other for personal things? If they have a really good friendship, they're calling each other to vent sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I didn't say that.
But yeah, we still confidential, but
confidential. Yes. Obviously, we're never going to talk about the things that are your personal things. Like I'll never talk to her about your financial situation.
Yeah.
But
no, exactly.
Let's see. So, how about this part? What can go wrong with a deal if a lender only has a pre-qualification?
What can't?
All right, enough said. Next topic.
A lot, okay? A lot.
All right, so let's see what happens here.
I'm trying to think of a good story. Do you have a good story right now?
Do I have a good story if somebody doesn't know? Because I would never send somebody out with pre-qualification.
Have you heard, like, realtors, though? Like,
well, I know
you work with a lot of other people outside of me, which changed.
I know there are things that happen, and I think the key thing is nothing ever with a pre-qualification, right? But the things that can go south is like if the loan doesn't go through and you pass your due diligence period, because if the loan doesn't go through, like your money's still protected. But let's just say the loan doesn't go through and we pass the due diligence period.
And the due diligence period, just in case you're not aware, there's a period in the contract where you negotiate, like I'll normally put like 10, 12, 15 days, depending on.
For a lot of different things.
Yeah, for a lot of different things. But I think there's a lot of protection in a contract for a buyer because there's like a loan contingency, an appraisal contingency. There's all these different timelines in the contract to where you could potentially cancel due to, again, so like a loan contingency, I normally try to push that not all the way up till our close date, but like maybe like a week
days.
or so. Yeah, like a week before. Or so out,
I've seen a common one as like 21.
I was going to say most of the time. So for me, for instance, I normally write 21. Yeah, 21 days.
And that's one of those key things you always have to keep an eye on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, on a 30-day close, not on a 60-day close.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, I might push that a little bit. But yeah, so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I've had people possibly go past it. And the risk you're taking is you could potentially lose your EMD money.
That's the main thing.
Or your earnest money deposit. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, an earnest money deposit, in case you don't know, think about it like a hold on the property. You're showing the seller that you're serious in the purchase of the home. The seller's really never going to see that money unless you back out of the contract, out of your timelines.
This is going to age me, but it's like, remember when you had to go to, I forgot, was it Walmart or Kmart? And you did layaway? You put a deposit on your layaway? Gosh, it's essentially what it is.
Kmart.
I know.
Wow.
Aging me pretty well.
I feel like there's been a lot of like aha moments with the age on this. So
you're welcome. But yeah, you can lose your money. The buyer can lose trust in their agent and their lender, right? And that's big for us.
Yeah.
The seller can lose trust in their agent for misadvising them.
Well, and I've had that happen too on the listing side, where everything seems smooth as butter with when we had a pre-approval. But I mean, life does happen sometimes, and we were pretty close. It was like the last few days of the loan contingency, and then all of a sudden, bam! And I can't think. I should be able to think of it right now. It might have been like a job situation, like a job change or something along those lines. I think. Well, I've had that happen before, but I can't remember what the last one was.
Job changes are
doesn't happen that. But here's the thing: it doesn't happen that often, but sometimes life happens. But that's why a pre-approval again is so important because we're kind of getting past.
We're getting as assured as we can get.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to get across. Yes.
See, the other thing is if you're the buyer and things go south because it didn't go right and maybe it could have been done properly, you can lose the potential for maybe good rates if rates are on the uprise.
Absolutely.
You can also lose your prepaids.
You can lose a lot of money.
Yeah, which is your prepaids, your appraisal. If you did an inspection, which I highly recommend doing.
Oh yeah, even I have a cash buyer right now, which is nothing to do with lending, but I told them, I'm like, hey, hold on, sometimes I'll tell my cash buyers to even get an appraisal. I didn't have to worry about this one, but because I got him a deal.
Oh, did you?
That's what happens to me. I'll get you a deal. Kind of a really good deal.
Oh my god.
Not to toot my own horn.
But yeah. I'm sure you did. I don't know this one, but I'll take your word for it.
Thing.
Yeah.
Midwest meets Vegas.
Yeah. That's what is it? The shameless plug-in.
Yeah.
I had to take it.
You had to take it.
Oh man.
throw us off here. Prepaids, yes. So there are some things that you pay for prior to closing. So our main goal betwixt the two of us, right, is to protect our clients' money and protect them as best we can throughout the whole process. That's the overall end goal.
I don't want
you have a good experience.
Yeah, I don't want to feel like that guy. I don't want to feel like that person that cost you thousands of dollars. And I will say this: I personally love my job, and I personally love doing this to help people. But sometimes I do get anxiety because I do want to make sure that nothing goes wrong for clients. You know what I mean? And it's not even a selfish anxiety. It's honestly more of a, oh my God, I don't.
Right.
I couldn't live with myself kind of situation.
I think we all have that, you know? And I think that's, again, even talking about like working with you and stuff, that's one thing that I do appreciate about you is like the human side of things. Right. It's not like, I don't want to say, well, I think that there's that like perception of the whole like used car salesman, like you're just trying to buy like, you know, sell this, sell that, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that's not the case, actually.
Yeah.
Especially when you love what you're doing, which we both do, right? We're actually there to really help people and get them to where you want to be. And so there is that little form of anxiety, I think, that sometimes arises.
So story time.
Oh, I love story. What's the story?
So I was actually in a podcast with Rick a couple weeks ago. I actually wasn't with Rick. I was with another client it was another agent. I had a client with them. But I mentioned it in the podcast last time. But the person waited to purchase a home. But the way they chose me is I knew they were shopping me. They told me upfront. They were very upfront about it. Very funny person, very amazing person. Still talk to her to this day. But she's like, you know, I was talking to other people. I didn't like this one person because they had bad rates. I had this other person, but they just felt like a car salesman to me. And I go, and then I talk to you. She goes, no, I feel like I'm actually talking to a friend. I feel like you're actually trying to help me. So she picked me for that reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is what I tell my clients. Yes, is this a sales job? Absolutely. You know what I mean? I'm not making any money unless I get you into a home, but that you should look at that as a pro because I'm going to find a way for you to get pre-approved if I can or approved for that home. But the other thing is when people are like scared or hesitant, I'm like, look, this is your purchase. To be honest with you, I am here just to get you the funding. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're going to make that choice. So if you want to move forward, move forward. At least you know what you can do and you have the opportunity to do it if you want. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point with that because I mean, let's be honest, I think in this case, there are a lot of people that are shopping like even realtor side of things. And I always tell people this too. I'm like, as much as I want to help you get into the home, it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it can't be hard feelings, you know, because sometimes it's just, we don't click or whatever the case is, you know, but maybe I can still help them get to where you guys click. Yeah. That's great, you know? But I think that's a big thing is just making sure that you, again, the 2 C's, right? Comfortable, confident. Yeah, that's cut and dry. That's it. I mean, I don't really, there's nothing else to say about that. Yeah. That's the main thing. So.
And let me see, bad advice, only time. I think the other thing is, I think that's basically it on that. Other than that, I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't send pre-qualifications personally. I don't believe in them, so I don't do them.
No, and that's one thing I appreciate. Do you know? Total side note here. I feel like I had something else to say, and it's just like completely
ADHD moment.
I can't stand that. Like I'm so disappointed in myself, and I felt like it would have been good for everybody. And maybe it'll come back, and I'll say, "Oh my gosh, remember we were talking about this?"
Yeah, Mitch is gonna cut me off.
All right. I'm bummed about that. That was total side note.
We'll get to it. Yeah, we'll get to it. Even if it isn't in this part of the podcast, we are planning on doing a second part for other reasons. Yes. All right. So on to our final topic. So obviously between you and me, we are very opinionated on pre-quals, bad, pre-approvals.
Good.
Thumbs up. Star, smiley face, dog, panting with a smile on his face, everything, all of it. But we like to take it a little bit further. I personally like to take it a little bit further. Yeah, when you get a pre-approval, you're set to go. You should be able to go out there, start putting offers on a home.
Are we going to talk about what I think we're going to talk about?
Yeah, we're going to talk about getting a full underwriter pre-approval.
This is like Willy Wonka with like the golden ticket.
Yeah. This is
real excited. I'm like, you have a what?
Yeah.
In the lender?
Yeah. Exactly. This is your ticket. Okay, so this segment is going to be your ticket to get in your loan to be, or your offer to be approved, more than likely, compared to other ones.
Like if we have apples to apples, a couple of buyers, right? And
you're going to go with the Honeycrisp, not the green.
I'm going to go with the Honeycrisp.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like the green apple.
Yeah.
Red apple. But like, my favorite's the Honeycrisp. I'm going for the Honeycrisp, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Toss in some baked brie in there, like, ooh.
To make it into apple pie, those are the best ones. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what that is.
So what is a pre-approval with a full? What is an underwriter pre-approval? Okay, Daniel? You're gonna ask me. Okay.
Oh, I was gonna ask you. I thought that was the thing. Daniel, what is an underwriter pre-approval?
Okay, we got this right. So an underwriter pre-approval, Rachel, is a pre-approval. After I get the pre-approval process done with my part, I have my team set it up and get everything they need and actually send it to a processor to review and then send it over to an underwriter.
What does that mean, Daniel?
Oh my God. Okay. So a processor, first off, let's get to that, is someone who's actually on our team. They're here to help us make sure that the file is clean and fully ready to be sent to an underwriter. Good processors are amazing for your file, and I'll tell you why.
That's like butter on a biscuit.
Oh my God. I got my favorite ones. I always request them as much as I can because when I work with them, let me tell you this. If an underwriter sees a sloppy file, they're going to question a lot of things. Yeah. If a processor does their job, knows what they're talking about, knows the guidelines, knows how to get around things, whew, it warms my heart.
I said butter on a biscuit.
But a processor, we'll get back to this. Yeah. So a processor is essentially going to go over the file, contact you as well sometimes. Okay. In the pre-approval process, they may not. But if they feel like they need additional information, they may call themselves, introduce themselves. But there are people who are going to ask you for certain things, like additional documentation that we may need, clarification on certain things. And these are the people you want to work with. They are on your side because they as well want to make sure that everything goes through. So they're your final line of defense, as I always put it, in order to make sure your file gets to that underwriter squeaky clean.
Well, and again, this is in the long scheme of things. It might be frustrating to start, but in the long scheme of things, this is really going to make sure that moving forward, this home, it makes sense for you in terms of the finances side.
Yep.
And that's where it's like, some people are like, oh my gosh, the underwriting side. Yeah, but there's a reason why that they're there. And that's to make sure that you
have the ability to repay.
Yeah. I'm a I don't know what to do. So yes.
Approved.
It's butter on a biscuit.
It is butter on a biscuit.
The golden ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I see one of these, I get super giddy.
Yeah.
From the listing side of things, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Like the other ones are good, but this one.
Yeah.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Is the one. Like we're there.
Yeah.
And so, Daniel, if we're in the underwriting side of the pre-approval,
yes,
we normally do, let's say, a 30-day close.
Well,
do we
Rachel,
need to keep a 30-day close, or can we maybe close earlier?
That is optional. With an underwriter pre-approval, since it's already been through an underwriter, it has the ability to actually skip a few of the earlier steps that we have to take. So it gets to processing and underwriting quicker, meaning we can close quicker. I've seen one close as early as 15 days, I think.
That was my next question. How is
Don't
what
push
is the earliest you've ever seen?
I've seen 15, I think 14 or 15 days actually close. And it's but on average, they close around 3 weeks. No. But on average, they close around 3 weeks versus the whole month. And I think the reasons that people or agents, I think, like it more or love it a lot more is not only because you know that it's been seen by an underwriter, but obviously the closing process is a bit quicker. The process tends to be a little bit smoother. Well, much smoother actually. And you don't have to worry about that much. So the last thing you want to do is, as a real estate agent on the seller side, is feel like you're stressing and have to call the lender and real estate agent all the time to see how things are going. And then on the buying side, worried that maybe things are going to fall through. Because if we're being honest, we all have a little anxiety every once in a while about deals all the time, regardless of how easy it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could be the easiest file, but we still...
I don't remember. Well, the last client we had was...
it was so
she's
easy.
Fabulous. I loved it. But most of the time, there's a lot of stuff I think that happens on the backside. We might make it look easy, but there's a lot of things that happen on the backside. That's why you have the 2 C's, the comfortable, confident. We're comfortable, confident too, but
I will definitely shade you away from, or protect you from having to deal with a lot of the stuff if I can. Again, my job is to do as much as I can to make it easier.
Yeah.
But I will say this: make sure that you are, just make sure you're participating or being just helpful when it comes to the things that we need. Because again, we're here to help you. I'm not asking you for things if I don't need them. I don't want to make it harder. Last thing I want to do is call you for something I don't need.
And that's a very good point. I think people are like, oh, they're just asking me for this or that, and they don't really need it.
If I'm asking for it,
there's a reason
I need it.
We need it.
Yeah.
And I know it's frustrating, but
and I'm usually asking for some things because of the things you sent me before triggered me to ask you those questions.
Yeah, there could have been. Well, that's a good point, right? There could have been something that was sent where maybe you didn't need so-and-so documentation to begin with. But after seeing the first initial documents, that triggers to where you need something else. And that's where I think some frustration can come in. But that's also why they have you, right? Because you're there to make sure that everything runs smoothly to get to that closing table.
That part, and the fact, like I said, the processors, I love my processors. Like I said, the cleaner the file, less questions get asked. And I love it. I had, just a quick side note, I had a handful of deals in the past month, and I thought a couple of them were going to be a lot more crazy. But I got super lucky, and my processors were able to kind of just make it as smooth as possible. So I'll just end with that in a sense. So
which is good.
Yeah. But all in all, I think we've pretty much covered everything we needed to cover today. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that I haven't really seen a lot on the difference between a pre-qualification and I haven't seen a lot difference. What am I trying to say? That's not what I was saying. Scratch that. I haven't seen a lot on social media with people talking about the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. And I think this is very important.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, since I'm not licensed to do the lending stuff, I think this was insightful.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm looking at it if I was like a newer agent or a buyer, because you're not going to know.
Yeah.
And this is stuff that as a realtor, you're going to need to know if you don't already.
Yeah.
And as a buyer, you're going to want to know.
Yeah.
So you can understand, this is why they're asking for that.
Well, this is just the basic part of it, right? So this is why it's so fundamental to really understand what's kind of going on and just to be as educated as you can when it comes to the purchase to buying a home. But a pre-approval is always going to be good no matter what market you're in. Hot market, cold market, medium market, pre-approval. Pre-qualifications are just
I don't drop. That's what pretty much what happens to pre-qual, right? It's like you go and then the deal goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those Looney Tunes.
You're talking about the Roadrunner.
The Roadrunner and stuff, with the coyote.
Yeah.
Always getting beat up.
Wildly coyote.
Yeah.
Your pre-approval is the Roadrunner, and your pre-qualification is the Wildly Coyote.
Right. We're being the Wild West, but your lone side doesn't need to be the Wild West,
Oh my God. All right, guys. Well, just to recap, we talked about what a pre-qualification is. We talked about what a pre-approval is. We talked about what a full loan underwriting pre-approval is. We gave you guys some stories that I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was insightful. I hope that you guys are educated. And if you guys are interested or enjoyed the podcast today, please go ahead, subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, leave a rating, whatever you want to do. We would love it. And we will be back to share some more information with you in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, Rachel, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Oh, we have to do the
We're going to be doing some more videoing after this, but you guys wait for that later.
I'm gonna
Peace.
do it.